of the subjects that I'd like to discuss today is about exercise. Uh, as you know, we've been talking or discussing about the subject of spirituality and spiritual growth and the things that we need to do in order to put ourselves on a path of spirituality. Yet, there are things that we need to also incorporate in our lives that have to do with our body, the the framework, the frame of ourselves that actually takes our soul throughout the journey that we experience. And without the proper muscle strength, cardiorespiratory endurance strength of our heart and lungs working together, the flexibility that we may have, we would sometimes fall short of survival, specifically as we get older, right? When we need to survive, when we need to pick up keys, or a person needs to like be able to, if they drop something, be able to pick it up, as I just said, or be able to push something away from them or open something or pull something towards them. It's essential that we're independent and that we remain strong throughout our lives. And one of the things that we need to do is to maintain muscle strength. So I wanted to just incorporate some of the findings by a man by the name of Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, who's a professor at Lehman College in the Bronx in New York City. And some of this information that he's presented, I found rather interesting, and I thought maybe many of you would be able to either apply this if you are not exercising, or just take the information in if you do have an exercise program and you can maybe pass it along to someone else. So it's really about muscle adaptation to strength training, right? And we want to like figure out how we can adapt ourselves to get the best results for working out or lifting weights when it comes to like using resistance or all weights. And many of the studies show that bone density, which is correlated with our muscle mass. So as we lift weights and we build more muscle, we wind up increasing the mass of our bones as well. And we have better absorption of calcium or phosphorus, which makes our bones stronger. And that's essential because as we do age, specifically women's bones become more um, brittle and lose a lot of the calcium, phosphorus, and minerals through their childbearing years. But it also happens to men as well. So the key is to do multi-joint exercises. That means moving activities which don't only zone in or hone in on one specific area. So in other words, like curls is working just the bicep or the arms. We want to incorporate an exercise or activities that incorporate many joints, not just one. So in other words, a pull-up, pulling up on a bar is incorporating your elbow joint, your shoulder joint, and also working the different muscles of the back. So multi-joint exercises like squats, chest presses, bench presses, push-ups, these types of activities will assist the body in using various muscles. And we want to stimulate muscle movement and stimulate muscle growth. The key is that we really want to exercise as soon as possible in our lives to build up a reserve of bone, and we also want to build up a reserve of muscle. Why? Because as we get older, we start losing these components of our body. We start losing muscle, protein synthesis, and we start losing bone mass, a natural process as we age. So the earlier we start, the quicker we develop a bank account of bone density and of muscle density. It's never too late to start, however, and that's the key and what I'd like to discuss. So when you're in your 30s, you start losing muscle, but more specifically, when you reach your 50s, you are definitely going to lose more muscle mass. So how do we maintain the muscle that we may lose or have the potential to lose? The key is to exercise by stimulating the muscles, but also by taking in protein. As we age, we need protein throughout our lives. As we're younger, it's easier for our bodies to absorb the protein that we eat or we take in. But as we age, our body has a harder time of digesting the protein and absorbing the protein, which is essential for muscle mass and muscle growth, which is the key for it to grow. So protein is what makes up muscle. As we exercise and we do, let's say, for example, endurance activities where we walk or jog, we're actually burning protein along with minimal amounts of fat, because protein is given up by the body much quicker, which is muscle. So when we exercise and do a lot of endurance activities, we're burning minimal fat, but also muscle. So how do we replenish the muscle that we're losing in the process of exercise? We do this by eating protein or taking back the protein back into our body to help rebuild the muscle that we're losing. So it's a balance. So how does that work? Essentially, you want to try to get, let's say, for example, if you weigh 140 pounds, you want to get somewhere about 140 grams a day of protein. If you lift more weights or you have a higher exertion or a um, caloric loss due to exercise, you need to uptake the amount of protein. So sometimes people who are exercising don't get the proper amount of protein. And more so when people get older, they may not get enough protein, and surely they may not be absorbing the protein that they are eating. So it's essential to get protein. Many people think that when they're exercising and doing endurance activities, they're like losing weight and they're burning fat. But as I just mentioned before, they're mostly burning protein. So the key is to get the protein back into your diet so that you maintain the muscle that you're losing through exercise. And remember, it's never too late to start. There's a profound strength gain for people who are just beginning. After about 8 to 12 weeks, they're going to see dramatic strength gains. And strength gains means that there's more muscle absorption and more muscle growth. So resistance training, which means using weights or using your body as the means of resistance by doing push-ups or pull-ups with a bar, or activities that mimic certain types of machine work, will stimulate muscle growth. And that's an important thing because as we get older, most people who are in their, let's say, 70s and 80s, specifically 80s, if they break a femur bone, the hip bone, they're hospitalized, and usually I think 50% or more wind up dying after 2 years due to that because they have no mobility and they can't get around, and their body becomes degenerative over time. So some of the factors, as I just mentioned, is to consider the amount of protein that we take in and the amount that you're getting. Trying to match your weight with the amount of grams of protein that you get on a daily basis is essential. So another thing I wanted to mention was that you want to spread the protein throughout the day. The studies show that it doesn't matter whether you take the protein before you exercise or after you exercise. What's essential is that you get the total amount of protein grams into the body to replenish what is lost throughout the day of exercise. We want to stress the muscle, right, requiring somewhat of an exhaustion. So now there's two schools of thought based upon some of the information that I read. So a person can either lift heavier weights, and by lifting heavier weights means they're not going to be able to do as many repetitions of that particular weight. Or a person can actually exhaust the muscle by doing a lighter weight, which they can do, and do it a lot of times or a lot of repetitions. Both will actually increase the strength of the muscle. That's what the studies say. It used to be that you have to just lift heavy to stimulate muscle mass. And what they're finding out is that you don't only have to lift heavy, you can combine the endurance of lifting the weights with heavy repetition, not heavy weights, but a lighter weight, but a lot of repetitions, like almost 10 to 20 repetitions. Whereas if you lift heavier weights, you're not going to be able to push a weight 10 to 20 times. If the weight is heavier, you're only going to be able to lift it a certain amount. So there's two schools of thought. So if a person has more time and can't lift heavy weights, they can stimulate muscle growth by using lighter weights and a lot of repetitions. Or if they do have time and they do have the strength, they can increase the weight and do less repetitions. And both were found to actually stimulate muscle growth. Now, there is something to keep in mind. As human beings, we have two different types of muscle fibers. We have type 1 and we have type 2. Type 1 is endurance fibers, which help us do things repetitively. Type 2 fibers are more muscular strength fibers, which help us, assist us in strength moving, pushing things that are heavy, lifting things that are heavy. And as we age, we wind up losing more type 2 muscle fiber. So the key is for us to maintain the type 2 muscle fiber strength that we have at whatever age we are, so that we take those fibers into our older age and have more in the bank. That's one of the key things to keep in mind. Another thing I wanted to mention is the fact that they found that omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in cold water fish, olive oil, fish pills, have the potential to increase a person's ability to stimulate muscle growth. And that was one of the things that's very interesting. So it's important to keep in mind the food we take in, right? The caloric intake of the things I just mentioned in terms of protein, and also the omega-3s have a great capacity to assist with actual muscle development or helping muscle grow, stimulate muscle growth. The key is also to maintain multi-joint exercises. Using different joints will stimulate all the different muscles and you'll get a better workout. Okay, I just wanted to say that, remember, we're not only on a spiritual journey, we're also on a physical journey with our bodies. And our bodies need to be strong to house our soul, to house our spiritual growth, to house our thoughts, to house our direction that we're moving in. So stay strong, stay healthy, try to incorporate some of these things that I mentioned today. And if you like my channel, please subscribe. And if you like this video, please give it a like. Have a great day.